It's the GDO Show. Hey there, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of the GDO Show. Um, this has been an idea that's been going on in my head for a really long time, and I decided to finally start putting it on paper and just start doing it, and then if I ever stop, it stops. But I thought, this is something I just wanted to get my foot in the door with, because I don't know, having some sort of audio show like this to like go back and listen to or something like that is just like, I don't know, it's just always one of those things that's like been in the back of my head for me, because I really enjoy listening to like podcasts and stuff like that, and who knows if what I do is interesting enough to listen to, kind of thing. But I just wanted to get it in there, get a library maybe. If it picks up, who knows? If it doesn't, well, that's just the way it goes. So I thought it would be just kind of like to just get it going and just see what it's like. So that's pretty much what the idea of the GDO show is. It's not meant to be something that I ever planned on like streaming live or anything like that, because primarily primarily I'm a Twitch streamer now. Like back when I was, just in like my first couple of years of university and stuff like that, I was all about doing YouTube stuff, because that was around the era when Let's Plays were starting to get really popular, and it was like, everyone's doing a Let's Play kind of thing. So I always thought about that like for a long time, but I had no way of recording. I had no way of like knowing what to do, and then one day I looked it up and it was like, hey, you can get like, a capture card. And before that I was like, I have no idea what a capture card is. Like, is it something you have to install in your laptop, whatever? And I was like, oh, it's just a little device that you can plug in by USB eventually. So I'd always wanted something like that, because I'd played like a lot of Smash Bros before, and it was like really cool. And me and my friends, when we played Smash, all we did was we set up like a digital camera at our TV and like just recorded that way. And that way you got the room audio and you got the game audio, and everything was all hype and stuff like that. So then one day I was like, well, it doesn't really work, because I mean, I just want to record with a microphone and get just the game audio on its own, and then just sync them together and stuff like that. And I don't know. It was a really fun idea to start, but at the same time, it was like, it was all I had to work off of, right? So it's always fun in games, like until you want to get serious, and then you start kind of thinking of quality and stuff like that. So who knows if this will ever reach that point? But right now, I was just like, you know what? Just grab a microphone, grab a computer program. I've decided to record these on Audacity, because I don't know, it's the best program I've used to record only audio, but I don't know what's out there, what's not out there. Um, Part of me might switch to doing video recording sometime in the future. Like I don't really know. I can go over like all of my plans for what I was planning on doing with this like at a later date. But yeah, for now this is just like a short little intro about what the show, like where the idea came from, basically. So um, yeah, basically it was just like a bunch of iTunes like podcasts and stuff, like stuff online, like just people vlogging. um, I listen to a lot of Report of the Week right now as well, and I mean, it's just, I don't know, just the idea of doing audio only is pretty good. But I'm ranting, so um, I'll probably just be moving on from this. So what the formula is going to look like is, I'm going to come on. I'll probably be talking a little bit about what I've been doing in the last week or so, because I do a lot of streaming, I do a lot of watching YouTube. I'm a gamer primarily, so I mean, what I'm playing, it's always new and exciting. And I'm actually playing a game right now, just recording this, just to, kind of get in the hang of just playing the game and going. And I thought this would be a good idea to sit down, start recording, and maybe turn on the SNES Classic and just play some casual games for a little bit. So today we got Donkey Kong Country going, so that it's just fun. It's just fun. Something to do while I'm while I'm chatting. So what it'll be like is I'll come on, do a little intro what I'm talking about, and then I will maybe talk about some things that I went over in the last week. Um, Something that I'm not expecting a whole lot of because a whole lot of the audience that I've gotten on Twitch, I'm sure, isn't super duper interested in kind of audio only kind of stuff. So if there's any people that send me messages trying to hashtag continue the conversation from the last week's episode, or maybe have any questions or anything, I can always answer those at the beginning or something like that, or just kind of go over things that I don't know, people just want to contact me about. But again, I'm not expecting a whole lot of that, so mainly the show is driven by itself. So, but if people ever want to shout out something, then I don't know. I'm not gonna say no, but right now I'm not gonna say yes either. So we'll see how that goes. Then after that, I'll have a prepared, not super prepared, because this is meant to be more just like a casual talk and go thing, but it'll be sort of just talking, like just something I can chat about. Um, I have a couple ideas of things that I want to talk about, but it won't be anything like super major. I mean, sometimes I might talk about just things I've seen on the internet. Sometimes I might talk about things that I've seen, on Twitter, on Discord, on Twitch. If drama ever arises, people love talking about drama, so there's that. And then on top of that, there's a whole lot of other things that could get talked about. So that's like my primary goal for the GDO show. Um, for uh, for how it's going to be available going forward, that is something that is to be determined, because currently I was planning on just having, like, upload the audio only thing to YouTube, but I haven't uploaded things to YouTube in a really long time, so it's like kind of stunting an audience, just kind of going on to their own thing. Um, Twitch uploads are pretty memey. And I mean, at the same time, it's like, who wants to just kind of watch something on Twitch that isn't live? Um, uh, the other option I had was uploading to an audio only kind of site like SoundCloud or something audio only, just to kind of have a link to that, because then I don't have to make a video out of the audio and stuff like that. So there was always the idea of that, but um, I really don't know. What I might end up doing in the future is recording these as audio only, and then setting up something on Twitch to play the audio back, uh, live streamed, except it just wouldn't be live. It would be a pre-recorded audio recording of just me doing the show, and then I would just be playing it back live. So I would be able to just kind of sit and chat with people during the show, kind of thing. But meanwhile, all the audio would just be completely pre-recorded. And then of course I could just like get a bunch of things to discuss during the next week's show from the Twitch chat, because people would be sitting in there live. But again, that's a big if, because I'm not entirely sure how I want to be doing that. But I guess it all depends on viewer feedback as well, because I mean, I know my audience. My audience is speedrunning, and so, you know, we'll see how that goes. Um, so that pretty much goes around for how I plan on running things around here. The contents of the show, again, will vary from really silly topics to kind of serious topics, but I don't expect many serious topics. Like, I know something on Twitter that was going around was the pancakes versus waffles debate, and I thought that would be a really fun thing to discuss because, you know, everyone has their own opinion on it, but it's easy to say just pancakes or waffles, but it's a whole different story to say why it's pancakes and waffles. But then I thought, you know, it would be good to, you know, go one step forward and, you know, don't let's not just stop at pancakes and waffles. What about breakfast as an entirety? So then I thought, you know, that would be fun, but then you got the whole concept of hot breakfast and cold breakfast, and it just doesn't fit together. So, you know, it would probably be like a separate thing for each. I could imagine, you know, separate show for hot breakfast, separate thing for cold breakfast, because, you know, it's really hard to compare like hot breakfast like oatmeal to like cold breakfast like yogurt and granola and stuff like that. So, I mean, it really depends. So, I don't know. Again, it's just an idea I've thrown out there for the future. Um, I don't know if I'll be doing it sooner or later, but it just kind of depends on what my mood is. I generally, I don't know, the outlet to just talk is the main reason I decided to start running with this because uninterrupted talking about things is just like what I don't know, I just it's just what I like on the internet. So, but who knows? Everyone likes different things. So if people don't like it from me, well then that's just the way it goes. So another thing I would love to get is ideas from feedback on things to discuss. Because if people want to know my opinions on things, it's really easy to just have someone go, "Hey, can you talk about this?" and then just talk about that for like an hour or something like that. I don't really know how long these are gonna be. Um, my original plan was to go like maybe 40 minutes, 40 minutes to an hour. But I mean, it'll of course depend because I mean, if I'm talking about like cheese for an hour and a half, I'm sure people won't be that interested, and there isn't really a lot to talk about when it comes to something like that. So I mean, I'm sure like the entire population of Wisconsin will be pretty into that, but I don't know. I don't really think I could talk about such a narrow topic like that for so long. So it'll vary from time to time, um, but that's 100% to be expected. So yeah. So I just wanted to use this first episode to kind of talk about just me. Um, I don't know who knows what or where you're coming from. If I upload this to Twitch, if I upload this to YouTube, I mean, there's just so many hidden gaps. Because I mean, when I did Let's Plays on YouTube, I did a lot of talking about myself and stuff that was going on in my life. Because I mean, that's just what my platform was. Twitch wasn't really a thing for me back then. I never realized or even knew what Twitch was until 2013. So it just wasn't there. And then one day I found Games Done Quick on Twitch and I was like, "Oh, okay, what's this speedrunning?" Because I'd always been a fan of speedrunning on SDA, Speed Demos Archive, and I watched segmented runs of Tales of Symphonia and Majora's Mask and Banjo-Tooie and all like the fun games from my childhood. So I don't know, I was just totally into that. So then when I found out that people live streamed it, I was like, oh, I want to get into that. But so I tried to do it, but my internet was too bad when I was living with my parents, so I couldn't really stream on Twitch. And then, you know, one day I moved out and I was like, okay, maybe I can stream now. So I lowered my bitrate and I changed all my settings to lower just so I could stream actually, and then I started getting on that. But that's another story. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. Um, I don't really know where I'm going with this, but this is just all about me. So if you're ever interested in where I came from, then this is kind of it. So basically, I've been pretty much a gamer my entire life. Um, the earliest, I mean, I don't really have any early memories because first off, my memory isn't great. But second, I remember like from pictures and stuff like that. For Christmas a long time ago, in like I don't remember when it was. It was probably like when I was 6 or 7 or something like that, or maybe even 8, because I remember being a little older. My family got a SNES, and SNES was like the first gaming console I ever had. I never got the original Game Boy until after the SNES, but the original SNES was like great. I mean, before that it was like, chilling with friends and, you know, doing all the little kid stuff that little kids do, hanging out, playing outside, this and that. We had a really kick-ass tree fort in our backyard when I back then. But yeah. Anyway, so SNES, and I remember playing a lot of Super Mario World. Super Mario World is probably my favorite game on the SNES. Even today, um, I've gone back and replayed a lot of games from my childhood that were on the SNES, and it's one of those things where you go back and you play a game and you have two kind of expectations when you go back and play a game. And the first one, which was like the most obvious one to me, was wow, I was a dumb kid. How did I ever get stuck on something like this? Because I mean, there were a lot of SNES games that I had a lot of troubles with, and you play it and you're just like, oh, how did I was I ever expected to find out how to do this kind of thing? But I mean, just depends. The second big thing that I found out was how did I ever do this as a kid? Like it goes from how was I supposed to figure it out to how did I figure it out? Like there's a couple games I played from when I was a kid that I have no idea how I beat because I can't even do it now. Like for example, one of the games that I played a lot of when I was a kid was Super Double Dragon because we had that for our Super Nintendo. And that game is just like a 2D beat 'em up kind of game. Like but it's really fun. It's just like you play as, Billy and Jimmy. And it's a two-player game, so I could play it with my sister as well. And some of the stuff that that game expects you to do is like pretty difficult. Not gonna lie. Like, I don't know how I beat it as a child, but I guess I never did beat it as a child. I always got to like the last level and then just died in the last level. But then when I was like I don't know, when I was like 18 or 19, I probably went back and played it again and was like, "Oh, okay, well, this is how I was supposed to do this part." But then there were other parts, like before the last level, you have to do this big bridge area, and there's a lot of really strong enemies there. But then at the beginning of the stage, there are these really, really dangerous jumps that you need to make across these gaps, and I have no idea how I ever got them as a child. Like the jumps are just like they're really difficult to make because you don't have a lot of leeway in terms of jump. Like if you mess up your jump, then you're 100% going straight into the pit. So it was like, okay, well, let's do it again. Another game that I always remember like being really good at when I was a kid, and then when I played it again, as an adult, I really sucked at it was Super Mario Kart. I remember as a kid going into like 150cc and like just destroying the competition in like the special tracks and stuff like that, and everything like that. And it wasn't even difficult like in the slightest. But when I went back and played Super Mario Kart as an adult, it was like I could barely get fourth in like a track, and it was just like, man. I mean, part of it goes to show just how much easier games are getting these days. Like during the era of like SNES gameplay and stuff like that, it was it wasn't that hard to just play a game and be good at it. But nowadays games are just being made so much easier. Excuse me, I need to blow my nose. Sorry about that. So, when you're being exposed to games for so long that are easier, and then you suddenly go back to games that are harder, it's a lot harder to play the game. Like I couldn't explain it. I was just like, how did I ever do this as a kid, but I can't do it now? Like I don't know. It was just mind-boggling to me. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe I was then I thought, maybe I was a better gamer as a kid, kind of thing like that. But then it's like, no, that's just impossible. So, yeah, I don't know. And I'm just caught up on all this. So, the SNES library we had wasn't very big, but I would say we had like all the classics at the time. Like I didn't have games like Yoshi's Island or like Donkey Kong Country 2, but I mean I rented both of those from like the game store that was near me as a kid. And then I rented a lot of other bad games too. Like there was a lot of Genesis games that I rented as well for our Sega, but I mean I don't really think there was good. Like there were some Looney Tunes games and this and that, but probably the most time I got out of any game as a child was Super Mario World and Super Mario All Stars and Mario Paint. Mario Paint was like the first experience I had with like any sort of animation or pixel art. And I never really took off with that because I don't know, most of the time I spent in Mario Paint was either playing the Fly Swatter game or or making music in the theater that they have. Because I mean, who didn't enjoy making music? But the problem with that was it was only so long, so you couldn't make anything very long. But then I discovered a program that you could play on the computer, which was just exactly like the Mario Paint Music Studio. And I spent a lot of time in there making songs. And I got into like this really big phase on YouTube where I would just go around looking for different songs that people had made. So I just, people make all sorts of crazy stuff, like from any sort of Britney Spears song to like, I don't know, someone made a Through the Fire and the Flames on on Mario Paint, and it's just like, who has the time for that? But at the same time, it's a big project. I mean, people love stuff like that, so I mean, it was probably worth it in the end. So, a lot of time into Mario Paint. Those were the good old days. Um, and then, like I said before, we had a Genesis as well, and so I spent a lot of time on the Genesis. And I mean, we didn't have it for very long because I spent more time on the SNES than the Genesis, so my parents decided, well, not much is getting done with the Genesis, so may as well just donate it away to Children's Hospital or something like that. And I don't know, I was kind of fine with that. I mean, it kind of sucked losing the Genesis, but at the same time, my parents were like completely right. Like compared to the time I spent on the SNES, like I spent like next to no time on the Genesis. So I couldn't really put up much of an argument there. So I mean, the only games I spent a whole lot of time on were we had The Lion King for Genesis, and I did spend a lot of time on that. And that is a really classic game. But again, it's one of those games that I never beat as a kid. I had to go back as an adult to beat it because I couldn't ever figure out how the maze level was supposed to work. But then, when I grew up, I was like, oh, you just have to kill all the hyenas and get to the end. But I kind of kept getting lost everywhere, so it was like, I just can't figure it out. And then I put a lot of time into Sonic 2 and into Sonic Spinball. I never beat Sonic 2 as a child because, I mean, again, it's the case of little kids aren't good at video games. So I don't know. I never beat Sonic 2. I always got to Wing Fortress Zone, but then I just never ever got past it. So that was a thing, but I mean, it's what it is. I went back and beat it, and I mean, I was close to the end, but there's like no way I would have ever beaten Metal Sonic and Doctor Robotnik um, as a child. That fight was kind of difficult even for me now, but then again, I've only ever completed it like once or twice, so. And then, of course, the other game I spent a whole lot of time on as a child on the Genesis was Sonic Spinball, and to this day, it is still my favorite Sega Genesis game. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know. I just really like the game. Like, it's really easy. It's fun to play fast, and it was like one of those games that I always tried to beat really fast as a child because I was kind of good at it. So I just like always timed myself, and I wouldn't say it was like speed running or anything. I didn't even put a timer to myself. I just wanted to beat the game as fast as possible, or like get the highest score I could, kind of thing. So just a nice easy thing. So and SNES era was really good, and then I remember when I was like around 10 or 11 years old, pretty sure I was in grade 3 or 4, so it would have been maybe when I was 10. Uh, we got a N64, and to this day, the Nintendo 64 is easily my favorite console. Like to me, it just has all those games on it that just bring back all those nostalgic feelings as a kid. Like I remember the order in which we got our first like handful of N64 games. And because I mean most people would, but I mean I don't know, they were really fun to me. Like I remember the first N64 game we got with our console was we got Mario 64 and Diddy Kong Racing both with the console when uh, it was originally bought. So Mario 64 was definitely a game in its own thing for me because I mean up until then I'd just been used to like 2D Mario, and it just I don't know, 3D Mario was like so much harder. I couldn't do it. It's like how am I supposed to do this? And I remember I mean I was still a young gamer, but I mean like I don't know, it was definitely a different experience than what I was used to. So I remember having a lot of trouble in like the in some of the stars in the basement because shifting sandland you always fall into the sand and stuff like that, and I don't know, I couldn't do it. So so the other game we had as a child, of course, was Diddy Kong Racing, and Diddy Kong Racing is probably my favorite racing game on the N64. I never owned Mario 64 as a child, so or Mario Kart 64, I mean. So I didn't ever like get to experience the joys of Mario Kart unless I went over to a friend's place who had it because I mean literally everyone else had Mario Kart 64 except for me because I just didn't care because a little about me now, I really don't like racing games. But back when I was a kid, it was like it was didn't matter. It was a video game. I just wanted to play it. So had a lot of fun with Diddy Kong Racing. I beat that one no problem as a kid. Diddy Kong Racing isn't a very hard video game. So, but again, it's just really fun. It's still one of my favorite N64 games today, and I have lots of friends in the speedrunning community who run the game as well, so that's cool. So next game we got, and this was like the thing that like captured my interest more than anything I'd ever played before. After after Diddy Kong Racing, the next N64 game we got for our collection was The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And to me, this game was incredible. Like, this was like the best game I had ever played. I mean, it had all sorts of good stuff in it. It was long. It was like, I mean, I know it's not really an RPG, but it was the RPG to play, right? So, I don't know. It was just really fun. And I got really stuck in the Deku Tree. Like, young me didn't understand like the concept of how to logic through a video game. So I got stuck trying to break the web in the Deku Tree because I didn't know that when you jumped down, you had to jump in the middle of the web. Because when I jumped down, I tried it, but I always landed like on the side. And I mean, it doesn't break the web if you're on the side because it's just not how it works. So, when it failed the first time, I was like, all right, that's not how you do it. And then I got stuck. And then I remember a couple friends like told me how to do it, and I was like, okay, well, I'll do that because everyone played it at elementary school kind of thing because video games were the thing. So I eventually got past that, got stuck in the Dodongo's cavern. Don't even get me started on Jabu. I got really stuck in there. And I mean, it was just the kind of that thing where like, I don't know, I couldn't ever get through anything by myself. It was one of those games that I tried to play by myself, but I couldn't do anything because I just wasn't that smart. So, Ocarina of Time, spent a lot of time on that. Eventually, as I got older, I got smarter, or as I played the game, I got smarter. So I remember the first time that I collected all the spiritual stones and went and, got the Ganon cutscene and got the Ocarina of Time and became adult. And like that was probably a defining moment in my childhood, I think, because I don't know, it was just like that. Oh man, now I finally get to like, do this. And I mean, you think games are over at a certain point, but then, you find out that you just barely scratched the surface kind of thing. So that was how it was for me. Forest Temple, Fire Temple were fine, but then the Water Temple came, and again, I was a dumb child, and I never made it past the Water Temple. Like, Water Temple was fine, and I mean, navigating it wasn't that hard, but the thing that got me stuck was, and this will only really matter to people who've played Ocarina of Time before. Behind the long shot chest, there's a block that you need to play the Song of Time on, and it takes you to a little water pathway that has a key at the end, a small key. And if you use all your small keys in the dungeon, you're out of small keys by the time you get to the boss door because it just requires a lot of keys to get that far in the game. So I had no way of getting into the door that had the boss key in it because I didn't know that this key chest existed. And I remember I saw the key chest because there's another room in the game that has some underwater currents and whatnot. And you can see the chest from that room, but there's no way to get to it because it's too high up. So the only way to get to it is to go through that water room. And of course, being me, I got the long shot from Dark Link, and then I went backwards through the temple. I went backwards through the temple because I thought, oh, it's a dead end. I gotta go back. So I went back, and of course you're not supposed to go back, you're supposed to go forward. So I never ever went back to that room. I I thought I had like locked myself out of beating the game. Like I I gave up. I created new files, got myself back up to that point. Maybe I used my keys wrong, but every single time I got the long shot and left out the same way. Spent hours and hours and hours in that dungeon trying to figure out where I had gone, what I had missed. Maybe I missed a key, maybe there was an invisible chest with the lens of truth kind of thing. So I had no idea. I was completely at a loss. Explored the game hundreds of times. I probably reset the file like maybe 10 or 11 times trying to like figure it out, but I couldn't. And this continued over years and years. Like there was there wasn't a whole lot like there wasn't a whole lot to do for me. So I just kind of gave up after a while, and I put the game back on my shelf after like maybe a couple months of doing this, and I went back to it every now and again, but it was always the same story. You're always missing a key. So fourth N64 game we got was Banjo-Kazooie, and this game was just it was my new favorite game. Banjo-Kazooie was probably the first game I'd played that I just wanted to keep playing again and again because it was just really fun. And as a kid, I didn't really take it very far. It was just like, oh, it's Banjo-Kazooie kind of thing. But it was easy to play. It was really easy to figure out. And then, of course, the quiz show at the end of the game was easily the most fun thing I'd ever done. Like, I purposely killed myself on like the last couple squares just to go back and do the board again because I just loved answering the questions so much. And it was really fun like playing the game but not really playing the game. You're just on a quiz board, right? And it was just really fun, grinding out the questions kind of thing. So, Banjo-Kazooie. And Banjo-Kazooie hit me again years later. Uh, right out of high school when I first went back to when I went to college was when I was like super into SDA. And that was when I got really into the Banjo-Kazooie run that was on SDA. And I spent a lot of time with a timer just timing myself playing through Banjo-Kazooie. I used the timer that was on my watch and I just I just wanted to see how fast I could beat Banjo-Kazooie. And the best time I got, like, without doing any speedrun route, any speedrun strats, I didn't know what those were at the time. I just played through the game as fast as I could, tried to get 100% as fast as I could. Most of the time I didn't get 100%. I missed like a note here or a jiggy there, but I had enough to beat the game, and I did it in like maybe just over 4 hours. And that was like probably the best I ever did. But I don't know, I just wanted to keep timing myself doing it. So the the other N64 games I spent a whole lot of time on them in like no particular order. Um, I still remember the next couple games that we got, but I mean it's not really important. Those were like the major ones: Banjo-Kazooie, Ocarina of Time. There was Tony Hawk, there was Mario Party 3, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. That is. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3, I spent a lot of time watching my friend play on his PS2, but I never knew it came out for N64, so there was that. So then we get to later on in the N64's library, and I go over to my friend's place, and my friend is playing a new video game, and it's like, oh man, it's the sequel to the game that like I love so much, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. And I got more into Majora's Mask than I ever did any video game. I spent a lot of time on game facts, game FAQs, look on the community boards for Majora's Mask, and I became a part of that game's community. I was all over that game. The game itself, the little depth between the characters, um, oh man, everything about that game just was just like heroin to me. I just wanted more of it. Like I wanted to discuss the backstory of the characters, the themes of the game that may have been hidden or not, or things we made up. I don't know if they were true or not, but I mean, it is what it is. I had such a crazy backstory with the war that went on and how it was like a deserted wasteland and stuff. And it was just like, who built the stone tower, where it came from, this and that. And it was just like, I just spent so much time chatting with people about, the significance of why the moon is a big field and all that stuff. And it was definitely the most I'd ever got into a video game. And it also like helped blossom a couple good relationships I have with people that I'm still friends with today, getting into Majora's Mask as much as I did. Because, like I said, it was my favorite video game. I knew other people who had it as their favorite video game, and it was wonderful. Definitely one of the best games I ever played. And then Banjo-Tooie for the Nintendo 64, I discovered. Banjo-Tooie for the Nintendo 64, I never ever played until I was almost out of high school. I had lots of other N64 games before Banjo-Tooie, but I mean, this was definitely this was definitely like the biggest game that affected me because it's the game I currently speedrun now, and it's probably the reason I have so many friends all around all around the world right now. So bless bless Banjo-Tooie. So anyway, speeding up because I have a feeling I'm just, ranting about little things now. Um, the end of high school comes around, and up until then, I had been a very avid casual player of video game known as Super Smash Bros. Melee, and I got really into playing it with a group of friends in my 12th year of high school. So, well, not 12th year of high school, but my grade 12 year, I got really into Super Smash Bros. With a couple friends of mine, and we played it all the time, and I ended up playing it for like another 5 years or 6 years, competitively going to tournaments and stuff like that. So that was definitely another big big game in my life. But I could do a whole show on Super Smash Brothers because all of them have really affected me in big ways. So look forward to a Super Smash Brothers episode sometime in the future. Um, so yeah, Super Smash Brothers, and then there were lots of other games that came out too. There wasn't really anything that good that came out for the Wii for me, but another couple games that really helped me through life that probably changed who I am as a person a little bit were Sonic Heroes and Tales of Symphonia. And Tales of Symphonia was one of those games that really helped me, like, it's really hard to describe. Like, Tales of Symphonia and Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog, all three of those games I played during a really dark period in my life. Um, a very good friend of mine who I was friends with in elementary school and high school, um, he killed himself when he was young, and at the time it was like I couldn't really get through the grief at all. Like it was just it was a little overwhelming for me as a 14-year-old, so I just kind of sunk into like the only thing I really knew, and that was video games. And at the time, the game I was playing was Sonic Heroes, and so Sonic Heroes always has a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth for that reason. It's it's a really fun game, but it always brings back memories, and so kind of hard, but at the same time it's like it's whatever now, like it doesn't really matter. But back then it was the only thing I could do to get my mind off of it. And again, Shadow the Hedgehog was the same thing. Tales of Symphonia was another thing that I played later after Sonic Heroes, and that was one of those games that there's a lot of emotion in Tales games, and that was just something that I'd never really experienced in video games before. Tales is like, because, other games are like, run to the right, hit the goal, or like do this, save the princess, whatever. Tales of Symphonia was the first game I ever played that had an emotion-driven story, and so, like, I didn't really know what to expect from it, and it definitely helped me through the hard times, I gotta say. Like, so, yeah. So Tales of Symphonia has a really good spot in my heart. It's also another game that I share fond memories with a friend of mine. Um, Back in 2011, I think 2011 or 2012, I did a co-op Let's Play on my YouTube channel. youtube.com/garagedooropener. That's the zero, a zero instead of a O in opener. Um, we did a collaborative Let's Play of Tales of Symphonia, and that was definitely one of the highlights of those years. So yeah. So again, just big things there. So I do Let's Plays of games for 3 years. Um, I just pick out my favorite games. You know, Hamtaro, Ham Ham Heartbreak for the Game Boy Advance. I did one of StarCraft Brood War, because StarCraft Brood War was one of those games that I didn't talk about just now that I put a lot of time into from 2000, probably 2001 until maybe probably 2009 or 10. I put a lot of time into StarCraft Brood War. And then I don't know. Basically, I did a lot of Let's Plays. Then one day, I decide that I'm tired of doing Let's Plays because I lost a ton of Meat Boy save data. And playing Super Meat Boy for the first time was really interesting, but I really didn't want to do it for the first time ever again because I knew I was going to be spending hours and hours on it. So I stopped doing Let's Plays, and it was around the same time that I discovered Twitch. And I was like, I could play video games just like for Twitch. But at the same time, the only experience I'd had on Twitch was watching speedrunners play games and GDQ and stuff like that. So this was mid 2013. I decided that I wanted to start speedrunning. And speedrunning was one of those things that I would probably say like most affected like where I'm at right now. But speedrunning was like it was that thing that just got me really, really engrossed in like video games for a long time. Um, I started out, asking around like what game should I speedrun? What's good? And I mean the answer I got was pretty unanimously just speedrun whatever game is really fun for you because you don't want to do a game that you don't like, right? So I ended up picking Majora's Mask because, like I said before, up until then, it was my favorite video game of all time. So I wanted to speedrun Majora's Mask. And doing it was really wild. Like I didn't know what to expect going into it, and it was definitely a rude awakening from the video games that I was used to playing. Because, I mean, up until now, it had been, okay, well, you're just playing video games, do whatever. When I was doing Banjo-Kazooie, it was, yeah, you're going fast, but now you have to go faster. Like, you can go as fast as you want, but if you're not going really fast, it doesn't matter. It's not a speed run, right? And I mean, it is a speed run still, but you're just not it's not very exciting to watch a game like not be done very well. So I started off playing Majora's Mask and I was like, all right, I need to get real good at this game. So I played Majora's Mask for a long time and it took a while to get used to it because, I mean, of course, you got to run on the right version, right? So I spent forever playing on the English version because I was like, this is all I had. Because I had a homebrewed Wii at the time, but I didn't know how to use it properly, so I just didn't bother getting the Japanese version. Plus, there were all these tricks that I didn't want to know, and this and that, and I was really lazy about it. So, eventually I switched to the Japanese version, and I played the game, and I never really got an impressive time. I got like a 202, I think, when the wrong soaring first got discovered. And it wasn't very impressive for me. Like I was just playing a video game at that point. Like, but it was what got me into it. Like a lot of people in my city got into speedrunning at the same time. I watched a friend of mine learn Metroid Prime from the ground up. a good friend of mine who actually just moved back here not too long ago has a world record in uh, Faxanadu for the NES, and I don't remember if he still has world record in Super Turrican for the Super Nintendo, but he used to at one point, and he's done a GDQ run for Super Turrican as well at SGDQ 2015. So Majora's Mask, I keep thinking, oh man, speedrunning this game is really difficult. How am I gonna keep doing this? Like, I just can't be good. And so, rewinding a bit, back in high school still, was in my grade 10 year, I think. A friend of mine owns Banjo-Tooie, and I want to borrow it from him because I didn't know that there was a sequel to Banjo-Kazooie. And so I borrowed it from him and I played the game, and this was better than Banjo-Kazooie in every way. The levels were bigger, there was more moves, there was more intricate ways of getting jiggies. There was no little jiggy dance after you picked up the jiggies, so you just like kind of moved from jiggy to jiggy without having to stop. You could be a dragon Kazooie. There were bosses. The music was amazing. Like, I don't know, this was just like that the game that I just played more than any other game at the time. And I remember borrowing uh, Tales of Symphonia from him as well, and both of the games I just never gave back. Like, I mean, I gave them back eventually, but it took him a while to realize I still had them because I just wanted him to forget that I had them. So I just kind of kept them. And eventually, I gave them back and got my own copy of both. But the Banjo-Tooie just stuck to me. And after I had enough of speedrunning Majora's Mask, I decided that I really, really wanted to speedrun Banjo-Tooie because it was one of those games that I just love so much. And again, I went back to thinking like people saying, oh, you know, if you want to speedrun, just speedrun your favorite game. So I go to YouTube because I remember watching the Banjo-Tooie segmented run a whole lot back when I was in high school. Like after I'd played the game, of course. And so I go on YouTube and I'm like, okay, well, how am I supposed to learn this game? Like, what is there to look at? So I go on YouTube and I see the world record holder's video at the time, PG, who still has world record. And I think, okay, well, to learn the game, I'm just going to copy what he does and then just do it myself. So I just watch along, I copy his movement. There were a couple things I couldn't do, couple tricks that I just didn't understand just from watching. So I watch, I copy, I do the run, and I get like a time. This was any percent no DCW, by the way. I get a time of like of 450 or something like that, and I think world record at that time was a 252 or a 247. I can't remember what it was. So I play the game. It's real fun, and I mean, I couldn't really say anything more than that. Like, I just wanted to keep playing it. So this was mid 2013. It was around August that I decided that if I was to get any good at speedrunning Tooie, or Majora's Mask if I went back to it, I kind of had to put all my time and my resources into speedrunning. So I had a choice to make because at the time I was really into League of Legends, and I'd been in the League of Legends since 2011 because all my friends were playing it, and I just wanted to play it with them. So I decided that if I wanted to get good at speedrun, I had to drop all of my time and of League of Legends and put it into practicing speedrunning. Otherwise, it would take me forever to get a decent time in anything that I wanted to play seriously. So I stopped playing League of Legends. I started putting that time into practicing no DCW and grinding runs. And it was around that time as well that I decided that I had to stop making Let's Plays as well. Because when making Let's Plays, you have to record the footage, I had to rewatch it all, edit the videos, upload them. And that took several hours because like if I recorded a video for more than 6 hours, I was probably going to be editing it for more than 6 hours as well. So I just decided that, it's too much time. I don't have time to put into speedrunning if I do this. So eventually I completely stopped doing Let's Plays and I just basically ignored my YouTube channel altogether at that point, even though I'd just done YouTube Let's Plays for like the last 4 years. And I decided, okay, speedrunning and Twitch is the way I go now. And I started streaming, but I basically couldn't. Like, my late 2013 slash early 2014 streaming was really, really poor quality because I had basically no good internet. Um, my quality was terrible. I basically was streaming at like you could count all 20 pixels on my stream. Like it was really bad. And so eventually I got better internet or got better stream quality, but it took a long time. And then in 2014, early 2014, I finally had a good enough stream quality to be able to like stream consistently on Twitch. And in April 2014, on April 30th, 2014, me and some friends in my city did a speedrunning marathon called the Victoria 430 Speedrun Marathon. Going off the whole, 420 blaze it, we were just saying, 430 smoke broccoli every day kind of thing. And it was just funny, but that was when me and like a bunch of other friends got together and we just like practiced our speed games. We met up at one of their houses and was like, all right, let's show everyone what our city can do. So there was Metroid Prime. I did both Majora's Mask and Tui, and then there was other games like Zone of the Enders, and there was I can't remember some Steam games. I'm sorry, Rose, I can't remember which ones. And basically, it was just a big speedrunning marathon for me and my friends to like just have fun speedrunning. So we did that, and when I was doing Banjo-Tooie, I remember some comments from some people that I didn't know at the time because I hadn't gotten into any speedrun community. I just watched a lot of streams. Like I watched a lot of Runner Guy. I watched a lot of Now Narcissa Wright. I watched a lot of Stivity Bobo as well. And Runner Guy and Stiv were probably some of the first streamers I ever watched, along with like Trihex and Worster. And uh, I watched a lot of Sigalemic back then as well. And it was just really fun. But I'd never been a part of any sort of community. I was just a stream watcher at that point. So I get some comments in my chat from a dude named Hyper Resonance 92 who says I kind of look like ZFG. And I was just like, huh, okay. And I didn't know who this was, but he was a pretty cool dude now. But yeah. And then from there, eventually later on in that year, like August, I or I don't remember if it was late July or August. I met up with, or I started chatting with some friends regularly in the speedrunning community, and in August 2015, or I guess it was late July, I couched my very first GDQ run for uh, for Captain Cole, who was doing Banjo-Tooie any percent, and that was a really cool experience because in all the time I'd been doing like speedrunning and Let's Plays before that, I never really imagined I would like ever get anywhere with that. It was just kind of a GDQs are like big events, right? But who's ever going to be a part of that? So speedrunning Banjo-Tooie is where I'm at now currently. I've had a lot of things going on my stream since then, but I mean, you know, lots of people come and go, lots of friends, people who chat and stuff like that. I see a lot of people new and old every day, but that's pretty much who I am and where I came from as a whole. Um, Basically, it was just starting out on Let's Plays, eventually working up to speedruns, and then now, I mean, years later, I've done my own GDQ run, and that was like one of the coolest experiences probably I'll ever go through at a GDQ. I never ever expected to like get speedrunning to the point where it'd be where where it'd be where I am now. So it's just one of those things you just look back on and you kind of think like, wow, how did I ever get this far? And I mean, sitting down and talking about it like this now, kind of mapping out. I mean, there's lots of details that I missed and a lot of irrelevant things like who cares what video games I played when I was a kid, but it was all just a groundwork to get me into video games now. I feel like if I wouldn't have ever been so big into N64 games when I was a kid, I probably would have never started doing like time trials of Banjo-Tooie, and then if I would have never or Banjo-Kazooie, and then if I never would have like that's another big thing like I played so much Banjo-Tooie as a child, but the game I ended up speedrunning primarily was Banjo-Tooie. I always I always find that really weird for me because it's like it should have gone the other way. It really should have. And I have done runs of Banjo-Kazooie and still do sometimes, but you know, it's just where it is. Um, as of doing Let's Plays and YouTube content again, I've thought about it before, but doing video editing for YouTube just takes up way too much time. And for me, like, I would love to go back to doing it again, but I just don't know what I'd do. Like, I don't really have any sort of plans to go back to making any sort of YouTube content. So, um, like I said before, I do plan on maybe uploading these to YouTube for easier viewing pleasure, but I really have no idea if that's gonna be the case. If it, because I mean, recording these in Audacity, I would have to put the audio into a video editor in order to make a video file, because you can't upload just audio files to YouTube. So I would probably have to go through a little bit of that trouble, but I mean, it's not trouble for people who want to listen to it. If I was to get to the point where I would be live streaming the audio on Twitch, and then I could easily download the VOD and upload that to YouTube, and it would probably be the easiest way to get to YouTube. So, um, I guess I could kind of run it like that, kind of like a live, not live show kind of thing, but it's just how it goes. But yeah. So that's pretty much all about me and where I came from. I didn't really have anything more to say about that unless people had any questions about things I preferred. Um, Again, a lot of things I didn't go into that I could have. Um, huge, huge Super Smash Brothers player. There was a ton of Wii games I talked or I didn't never talked about that I got really into for a long time. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I nailed all the important ones. You know, all the little times in my life where video games definitely helped me out. And I mean, there were dark times when it came to that I talked about, like especially with that good friend of mine. But I mean, life happens, right? So you just kind of got to do whatever. Learn learn from life experiences and make it through and hope that the hardships don't come through. I didn't talk about like literally any of that, but I don't really plan to either. It's just unnecessary things that happen in my life that I don't really need to share. So yeah. Um, I did a pretty intensive talk about the kind of games I'm into right now. It kind of depends. Like I go through lots of phases of playing video games, and probably speedrunning is the biggest of them all. It's definitely the one that I've sunk the most time into nowadays, and so can't really say it was a waste of time because it's introduced me to so many really good friends. So, and then other things have too, but they've gone the other way. Like getting so into Majora's Mask introduced me to a lot of friends I have now. A lot of friends on the internet and internet communities like GameFAQs as well. I spent a lot of GameFAQ time on GameFAQs with a speedrunner named PD Boo. I remember him being in a lot of the boards that I was on back then, and also he got me kind of into Majora's Mask glitching, which kind of started the slow push towards speedrunning. Um, because I watched his Let's Plays quite a bit when I used to make Let's Plays, and and yeah, that's about it. So that about wraps it up for me for this episode of the GDO Show. Um, there isn't a whole lot left to discuss for me on the current topic, and so I feel I'd want to kind of cut it before I start beating a dead horse with all the little details. Um, if you do want to know more about today's topic, um, feel free to hashtag continue the conversation. I Again, I'll probably end up changing my format a little bit because, like I said, I know my audience, and I've been thinking about how I want to do things. So it'll probably end up being a live, not live Twitch thing. Um, but yeah, if you want to hashtag continue the conversation, um, you can send an email. I would really prefer email over anything else because the more places I'm getting messages, the more I'll miss them. I'm not really expecting to see a whole lot, so you know, don't expect. But um, email is at the GDO Show, THEGDOSHOW at gmail.com. You can also send me a DM on Twitter if you have me followed, or if I'm following you, because I think that's how Twitter DMs work. It's kind of dumb. At GD Opener. Um, I don't really think there's any other easy way to contact. There's always my Twitch inbox at twitch.tv/ garage door opener, and then there's always if you're on Discord, you can DM me at what's my numbers at GDO hashtag 7659, and then you can send me a message there. But like I said, primarily I would more appreciate an email than anything else. as it's the most efficient way to keep all the messages in place. So yes, up up until I decide that I have enough to talk about to make this weekly, I plan to do this once every 2 weeks. So maybe it'll be 3 or 4 episodes before I decide to get into weekly. It just depends on how much I have to talk about, um, and how much feedback I get on it. So we'll see. I'm probably gonna do this first episode as a test run on Twitch just to see if it works that way. But again, who knows? Who knows? Wrapping up. I don't really think there's a whole lot else I was missing out on. Um, Again, wary of the future. I I kind of jumped into this without a full plan of action of how I was going to be doing the episodes. So yeah. And like I said at the beginning of the episode, like I said at the beginning of the episode, while I was doing this, I was playing through Donkey Kong Country. Definitely recommend it. I would love to give little reviews on the games that I play when I'm recording the episodes, just to make it, just to give it a little, this is what I'm playing. This is kind of the review I'd give it. So I guess I'll do that for the first one. I have no idea if I'm going to be doing this ever again, because it was just a silly idea that just came into my head. Game is like pretty good. The original Donkey Kong Country, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I don't know how much of it's nostalgia going through, but the platforming's very good, and I mean, it's really easy to do in one sitting. I started my file like right when I started the episode, and well, I'm fighting K. Rool right now, so it's definitely a game that you can beat in one sitting. But yeah. So music's solid. Definitely get into speedrunning if any of y'all are interested in. I know a lot of people I hear saying on Twitch that, oh, I can't speedrun, it's too hard, you gotta know too much stuff. And I mean, yeah, it is a bit of a learning process, but at the same time, it's like, anything takes practice to get good at, so just keep at it and you'll do it. This wasn't anything part of the show or anything, I'm just doing a little disclaimer because speedrunning is just one of those things that I do, so may as well talk about it. So that wraps it up for the GDO show this week. Um, I don't have an idea of what I'm going to be talking about for next week's, or not next week's episode, but in 2 weeks' episode, the next bi-weekly episode. So tune in and find out, and we'll see what we got there. So this is the GDO show signing out, and I will see you guys all again. So, as a disclaimer, we're back to live again. Um, at the time of recording, I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to be doing with the end of the show. So, I'm going to start the experiment in the opposite direction. I'm going to be running the show every week instead of every 2 weeks, and then as I run out of things, I can jump to every 2 weeks as need be. So expect an episode next Friday, and hopefully every Friday, right here, twitch.tv/GarageDoorOpener. The videos, if you missed them, will be highlighted on my channel, as well as they'll be available on a playlist on youtube.com/GarageDoorOpener. That's opener with a 0, so Garage Door 0 PENER, because Garage Door Opener with an O was taken for some reason, but that's just how Google does things. So that's it for GDO Show this week. I'm going to leave you guys with some music as I quickly tune out, and then I'll catch you guys streaming throughout the week.